If you ever want proof that the comic industry is tone deaf, look no further than this year's Eisner nominees. Ed Piskor was nominated for Best Graphic Album reprint for his Hip Hop Family Tree, which is in and of itself finds it's a decent nomination. You know, Piskor has a good track record of books that he's produced, drawn, written. But in an odd twist, Alex Campi was nominated for Best Graphic Album New for her Parasocial book that I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't read. But you nominated a man that took his own life and named his harassers and bullies, one of them being the woman in question here that you guys nominated. Did you not think this would cause some kind of controversy, that this would cause some kind of questioning of the Eisner's integrity? Again, imagine if the shoe was on the other foot. You think that Piskor would be given a day in the sun? And I really think that they nominated Piskor because the book in question, Hip Hop Family Tree, is about Black culture, so it scores their diversity points. And also, I think that if they were going to nominate Alex Campi, they probably say, you know what, it's probably not a good look if we put a very controversial, antagonizing, aggressively parasitic person in the industry and give her a nomination. Let's balance it out by giving it to this guy too, since he did produce good work. And maybe they won't talk so much about how he highlighted and pandering to a known psychopath in Alex Campi. And mark my words, this is just another way for the industry to sweep the story under the rug. And Bleeding Fool actually puts it right. It's a very ghoulish act in the guise of diversity to nominate not just the man who took his life, but to nominate the woman that was in part responsible for that man taking his life. It's almost like giving OJ a nomination and his wife Nicole a. Well, no, that's not. That's an unfair example. Let me refrain from that. I shouldn't say that. That's a very unfair example because there was no question OJ was actively directly involved with Nicole's unfortunate situation. Well, I could say murder because he's no longer with us, but yeah, there was no question about that. Alice Campi was just named by Piskor, but she didn't do herself any favors by acting passive aggressive and very apathetic to what had happened with Piskor, with the false accusations and the slander by his accusers, Molly Dwyer and Molly Wright. But yes, this is this is insane. Like, these people didn't take time to sit down and say, you know what? With the controversy associated with this woman, why are we awarding her any bonus point? Why are we awarding her any validity, any validation about her contribution? Maybe this is not the time of the year to give her that nomination. And I really think that Piskor was always going to get that nomination. They could have just sat back and said, maybe this is not a good idea. This is probably not this is not good optics. Or maybe they said, you know what, the controversy is going to help us. It'll bring more eyes to what we're doing and maybe save the industry. I don't know. But it's very tone deaf. Very tone deaf thing to do, to nominate this psychopath along with the man in question that pointed the finger at her at being one of the bullies and harassers that led to him taking his life, unfortunately. But we're seeing a crash and burn. So take out your popcorn, take out your beer, your liquor of choice. Or if you don't drink liquor, take out your pop soda. Or if you're healthy, take out your bottle of Poland spring water and just watch it burn to the ground. Watch the insanity of it. Because if it's not this, it's the MCU pushing this Agatha Harkness TV series that nobody asked for. Nobody asked for this TV series, but somehow the MCU, and this is what I said before in my previous videos about the MCU dialing back on their production. It's not how much you're putting out there, it's what you're putting out there. Nobody asked for an Agatha Harkness series. Meanwhile, you guys can't even get the Fantastic Four right. You're still butchering that IP. It's amazing how Roger Corman was the only one. By the way, rest in peace, Roger Corman. Roger Corman's the only one that was able to do the Fantastic Four right, and he had maybe a quarter of the budget that the Fox had for their two Fantastic Four movies. not well, I should say 3, but that third one they did was awful beyond words. At least the ones with Jessica Alba and then pre Captain America, Chris Evans was still fairly okay. It wasn't bad. Putting Galactus aside, of course, but still, they still just can't do a Fantastic Four movie correctly. It's amazing that IP gives them trouble to this day.
No, because I'm actually fucking confused. Are you lot gay or am I fucking ugly? Because why on earth am I still single? And I know it's not the latter, so...
But you wanted to score diversity points. You wanted to open the doors for tolerance and openness and diversity. And what happens, you bring women into a man's space and you get men either getting themselves off or in positions where they're abused. And it doesn't matter how badly a man is abused. It doesn't matter how badly you have a Johnny Depp. You're going to have your evil people, very evil people in this comic industry community that will always bypass the man's plight because they'll weaponize victimhood. They'll weaponize abuse if it empowers women, if it empowers feminists. You know, like you see here, for example, Amber Heard is still getting people, mainly women and their undersexed simps, going to bat for her. Despite all the stuff that came out that is on public record of the abuse that she put Johnny Depp through, some of the horrific stuff that she did to Johnny Depp. But somehow she's the victim. And I'm showing this because I want you people watching this, those of you that feel emotional about what happened with Ed Piskor and how he was slandered and lied about. The people that do this, they don't care about truth. They don't have empathy. They don't give a shit about you. They're evil people. They're absolutely evil. They're scum. They're parasites to the society because they've contributed nothing of value or productive to the way of life. And this is what they do. They will leech off your resources and then toss it to the side when it's convenient and slander, continue to slander, even after Johnny Depp was exonerated by a court of law. Exonerated. And these people will still weaponize what Amber Heard did to prop her up as the one that was abused, which was not the case. And Amber Heard is rightfully considered one of the most hated people, if not the most hated celeb of 2024. And rightfully so. She's a monster. She's an abuser and a monster. And people that are celebrating this are monsters and abusers themselves. If you see them on Twitter, you know that they've opened themselves up to be judged for the dark-hearted, soulless, demonic parasites that they really are. They hate masculinity. They hate men. They don't deserve to be hidden. They don't deserve to be quote-unquote protected. They need to be exposed. They need to be laughed at, mocked to the end of time, or until they realize that their thinking is evil and destructive and wrong, and repent of their evil demonic mindset, and stop celebrating monsters like Amber Heard, and stop propping up people like Alex the Campi who are themselves monsters. Yeah, let's not hold them accountable. Let's not hold women accountable. Women can be the absolute worst of society. They can be the worst, the dregs, abusive, violent, murderous. But we still have to let them alone. We still need to give them sympathy. We still need to be progressive, because if not, then misogyny rules the day. Here's this one person. She goes, "Please explain how it's misogyny." All that happened was an abuser that happened to be a woman was exposed as an abusive liar. Yeah, see, and again, it's to show that not all women are swallowing the feminist Kool-Aid. Is it misogynistic to hold a woman accountable for actions now? Since when? I'm so tired of misogyny used as her shield when there was nothing sexist. There was absolutely nothing sexist. And I'm glad a lot of people, both men and women, are pushing back on this feminist, destructive, anti-male, bigoted, satanic belief that is partly destroying and leeching off our communities, as well as the creative circles like comics or games, with the whole Warhammer thing that's not causing controversy. Or even like the recent, you know, and I'm not a gamer, but now it's coming out that women are upset because they've now been exposed to gamer talk by fellow men who that's what they do. When you get two guys together, they're playing games, they're gonna say all kinds of nasty shit to each other, but that's what they do. They have the skin to do it. Women enter those spaces, they don't like it, and now we got to change the men. We got to manipulate and change men. We don't like it. We need to change the men. Oh, how about this? How about we don't let the women in the spaces? How about women? You respect a man's space. If you're going to enter into a man's space, respect it. If you can't handle it, then, well, like the old saying goes, if it's too hot, don't enter the kitchen. If you can't take the heat, then get out of the kitchen. Well, this is our kitchen, and if you don't like it, don't enter the kitchen. Don't get in there, and don't complain about what you already know is a part of the culture. Men who play video games and compete with each other, they get engaged in all kinds of gamer talk. They're going to say some very hideous things, but they can handle it. Women as a whole cannot. So you don't belong in a space with men. But no, that's not the message we want to preach. We want to tell these women, go in there, and if you don't like what you hear, we're going to change the men. We're going to manipulate them. We're going to expound upon our sexist, bigoted pogrom against men, and we're going to force them to change. And we're afraid to call this out. We're afraid to say this because we come off as sexist. But you have to know how to argue this. You have to know, first you have to know as a man that you are who you are. Your instincts are your instincts. They're not the same as a woman's instincts. Our preferences are not the same. Our nature is not the same. Men as a whole have a competitive nature. And when men compete, it can get pretty hostile. It can get malicious. But men were built for that. There is no place for a woman to be in the middle of that or that. And in real life, we get stories of women who get their husbands or their boyfriends killed because they get in the middle of squabbles between men, and women have no place in that. There was a very horrific video a few months ago and this was in Brooklyn, of a neighbor squabble, and a woman who was married to she had kids, and she married a man, and that was the stepfather to her kids. She got in a dude's face because of noise pollution. And the video showed her being antagonistic towards the guy. Not that the guy was there with good intentions, but she shouldn't have been in the guy's face. Well, the other dude came out with a pair of scissors, and that led to the other dude shooting him and the stepson in cold blood before he took his own life after the police chased him. And I think to myself, when I see that video, if the woman wasn't in her man's spot in the first place, maybe her men would be alive. Maybe her husband and her son would have been alive. Not saying it's her fault, but women just don't get it. You don't belong in a man's space. If there's confrontation between men, stay the hell away from it. Just get away from it. It's not your space. It isn't in your, stay in your lane, as I say. Get in your lane. Let men handle men's shit. Don't put yourself in danger, because then you get other people killed. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I like this definition of misogynist. A man who thinks women are intelligent, rational, accountable human beings and expects them to act that way. No, you can't do that, because that's sexist. If you tell a woman that she's accountable for her own actions and she needs to be held liable for her own actions, it's sexist and misogynistic. No, Amber Heard was wrong. No, Amber Heard was right. She had every right to abuse and be physically violent and destructive to Johnny Depp. That is her right as a woman. If you speak out against that, you're sexist. And I say, as a man, don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid to push back against that. Say, hey, you know what? You're a bigot. You're a racist. You're the one with a hateful dark spirit, and you should be rightfully mocked, called out, and ridiculed out of the space. And it's time to start protecting men's spaces. You'll get less Me Too situations. You'll get less abusive women entering and causing all kinds of strife and division amongst men. Let men be. Let men be. It's their space, whether it's games, whether it's comics. Yes, comics is a man's space. It was created for men, made by men, and that's how it should have always been. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't make comics, but if it's a man's space, stay out of it. Because ever since we've desecrated the man's space, The MCU is losing money. DC is losing money. Marvel is losing money. You guys are losing money because you didn't respect the man's space. You didn't respect his space, and therefore you're paying for it with your wallets. And the result of that is we're rewarding psychopaths with Eisner awards, despite the fact that a man's life was lost and she was partly responsible for that. Are you guys ready to have that conversation? Are you guys ready to put it out there and really hold these industries accountable? Well, that's up to you. But thank you for watching, and we will talk soon. Take care and have a great weekend.